What is the weirdest experience you have ever had? Please do like, share, and subscribe. When I was a freshman, this girl came up to me in gym class, grabbed my hands, and went, "Oh my goodness, your hands are so tiny. Aww." Then she looked me in the eye all serious and said in a whisper, "Watch this." Then she reached in her shirt and pulled the cup of her bra away and took out a small lighter. She lit it and then unlit it and then said, "Shh, don't tell anyone," and walked away. I told my mom and she said the girl was probably flirting with me. Riding the Metro North train in New York, sitting in the seats facing the restroom, tall white man walks in, a couple of minutes pass and a short Mexican man walks out. My stop was the next stop, so there was zero chance I had an extended blink or passed out. The whole situation felt off. I was in university in London and my bus was super late. I felt like I was waiting forever. The number of people waiting at the bus stop kept growing and growing, but no buses came, and this stop was on multiple bus lines. Suddenly, hundreds of people in Santa Claus costumes and one Frosty the Snowman roller skated down the streets while Christmas music blasted. It was utterly surreal. Our buses arrived after that. Apparently this is an annual thing in London, but I'm American and had never heard of something like this. I got into an elevator at a con almost a decade ago, I think. 3 men inside. I smile at one, he smiles back. "How do you like the con?" I say. "It's good, how about you?" he says. That's not the exact quote. It was inane small talk. He was a fun accent. "I'm having fun, thanks," I say again. Not exact quotes, but pleasant niceties. The elevator opens. Approximately 36 people lose their whole shit, waving signs, cheering, screaming. I thought something horrible had happened just from the wall of noise, but no, it's a happy noise. Anyway, that's how I shared an elevator with David Tennant. The experience of the doors opening and all hell breaking loose for no reason sticks with me. On top of it being the absolute worst day of my life, once reality set in, it was very weird to realize that I would never see my fiancée again when she died suddenly a few years ago. I would never hear her voice, touch her hand, watch her while she sleeps, make her dinner, make her laugh. The last thing I said to her was the last thing she would ever hear me say. There would be no more holding her tight when she was sad, or arguing about something stupid, or anything really. I spent 15 years of my life with that woman. Her being there was just given a reality, like gravity, and realizing that she wouldn't be there anymore was so weird, on top of everything else. Still, kinda is. It's like suddenly something you always had known to be true, in the very fiber of your being, simply wasn't anymore. A couple of years ago, I lost my keys a few days before a trip out of town and absolutely turned the house upside down trying to find them for that whole multi-day period. We ended up having to leave our only spare house key outside in a stupid fake rock for the person who was taking care of our cat and fretted that maybe we'd let them in the front door one day and they'd been stolen or something, and we'd come back to a burgled home. Anyway, we returned from the trip and nothing is out of place, so no big deal, but we still needed our keys back. Some keys on that key ring were irreplaceable. Keep looking in every nook and cranny for days afterwards. Kept asking my 3-year-old kid if he'd taken them, but he denied. One day I'm home, sitting at my computer in my small office space alone, door closed, just working from home, and I hear the sounds of keys dropping and hitting the floor to the left of me, just out of my peripheral vision. They sounded as if they dropped from about 4 feet up. I look over, and there lay my lost keys, like 1 foot away from my chair. I had been in that room alone for at least an hour. My skin just about crawled off my body. I absolutely don't believe in anything paranormal, but I still have no explanation for that. The kicker was that my son had started talking about an invisible friend he called Buster around that time. I asked if it was the rabbit from the Arthur TV show, but he said Buster was adult size and an alien. Writing this is freaking me out a bit, even though Buster hasn't been mentioned in years. At least he was nice enough alien to return my keys. When I was 6 years old, I went to a restaurant with my dad and grandparents. Walking into the restaurant, there was a small room to the right full of arcade machines. I can't remember if other kids were there. When we got to the table, I kept begging my dad to let me go to the arcade. He pointed to the gambling machines at the bar and said, "Those are just for adults." I kept telling him that's not what I was talking about, but he wouldn't let me go. When we finished and started walking out of the restaurant, I turned to the arcade to point it out. There was nothing there but a wall. I was at a bar with some friends. We were sitting at a large table and there was no other free seats, so a couple of guys walked up to us about to ask if they could sit down. Then I recognized one of the guys and he says to me, so he said, "Hi, my name," and I said, his name. They sat down and we did the normal "how are things" routine. But after a while, I came to realize I had no idea how I knew him. I 100% knew his name without a doubt when I saw him, and he was familiar. So I had to ask him, where did we know each other from? He did not know either. He just had the same feeling when he saw me, someone he knew and instantly remembering my name. We spent the next hours backtracking lives and checking if we had Facebook friends in common. We did not know the same people, not even the same type of people. We did not frequent any of the same places. In fact, this was his first time at this bar. He was not even from the city, just visiting. In the end, we just parted ways, agreeing that this was one of the strangest things we had ever experienced. I have not met him since. This happened 4 to 5 years ago. The first couple of months after, I would show him on Facebook to my friends and ask them if they knew him, and yet no one did. I think our paths must have crossed in parallel universe. I was having my hip replaced and the epidural was taking effect. I was lying with my eyes closed and the doctor asked me how I was feeling. I said it felt weird. He told me it was going to get weirder and told me to open my eyes. He was holding my leg up in the air and I couldn't feel a thing. He was right. It was very weird. I once was going door to door selling literature, talked to an old woman in her 70s. She wanted the literature. Went back 2 days later to deliver books and a husband and wife came to the door. Told me no old lady lived there at first. I was suspicious, afraid they might be home invaders, but I saw kids running around in the living room and family photos on the wall. After talking some more, found out previous owner, an old lady in her 70s, had died there 3 years ago and they bought it from that family. I still get creeped out when I drive past that place. On the plus side though, that family bought the books though, LOL. A woman at work made some advances towards me, which would have been awesome if I weren't married. I play it off like it's a huge joke because I'm her supervisor and she was one of my best employees and a very nice work friend. A month later, she starts dating a guy. They come into work together and she introduces us. We look at each other, head to toe, and both start laughing way too hard because we were both tall, big, short dark hair, and beards with glasses. We looked so alike we could have been brothers. I gave him a handshake and we both carried on with our days. She has a type. I occasionally get deja vu, like most of us do, except there have been times when I'm 100% sure I'm actually remembering something I've dreamed. It's almost always just random inconsequential moments. The only exception was when my wife was in labor with our son. I had 2 really strong dream deja vu moments, minutes before my wife had postpartum hemorrhage, almost bled out and died, and even had a textbook NDE. Although I've had some other weird experiences in my life, they're all explainable or weird in a human way, or have been down to drugs. DMT is wild, LOL. But this dream deja vu is viscerally strange, has some really wacky implications, and it seems quite a few others have experienced it too. I'm not saying it's real, but it sure as hell is weird. I worked at a convention center that was built on the site of a farm that a local sheriff who had criminal ties to bootleggers used to own. There was a lot of paranormal shit that happened, but the weirdest was this. One time, we were in the basement, which had a long hallway that led to a storage room and kitchen. A coworker and I flipped off the lights, and while waiting for the elevator, we both saw a ball of light swirl up to the ground, shimmer, and dance for a minute, and then shoot off directly over our heads. Later, I learned that light orbs were an actual phenomenon. In college, 2 dorm rooms shared a bathroom. One day I get a knock on the bathroom door and find my suite mate standing there. We'd never really spoken before. She asked if I had friends over the night before. Once I confirmed, she said she heard what we had said and would be reporting me, then left. I find out later that she heard voices coming from my room describing what she was doing and discussing kidnapping her. In reality, my friends and I were stoned to the bone and talking about Shakespeare or something. Never saw her again. Hope she's okay. This happened many years ago when I was a teenager and still living at home. My room was in the basement of my parents' house. The basement wasn't creepy or anything. It was a nice, comfortable, fully finished basement, and at this point in time, the house was only 3 years old. One night, I wake up to the family dog, a 100-pound Doberman who usually slept in my bedroom, as he suddenly starts growling, then loudly barking at the stereo in my bedroom, which was turned off. I'm trying to figure out what his deal is when out of nowhere the stereo just fires up and starts playing music at the highest volume setting possible. I turned on the lamp on my nightstand and just sat there dumbly for a second, watching my dog maniacally snarl and bark at the stereo as music blasted from the speakers. I finally mustered up the courage to get up and turn it back off, and he stopped barking and calmed down. Needless to say, I was fairly freaked out. I got up and my dog and I went upstairs into the living room to sleep for the rest of the night. My parents and sisters all slept on the second floor of the house and didn't hear any of this go down. The next morning I explained what happened to my dad, but he just kind of shrugged it off and said, "That's weird." It never happened again, but it was definitely strange and it scared the shit out of me at the time. The stereo was just a basic boombox style CD player from the late 90s. It didn't have alarm settings or a remote control, so there's no way it would have just turned on like that without physically pushing the power and play button. To this day, I have no idea how that happened, and the part that still gives me the willies is that my dog started growling and barking at the stereo a couple seconds before it somehow just turned itself on. For the record, he was a large, friendly, calm, good boy, and he rarely barked at anything. Running into my best friend from high school in a Greyhound station. I mean, it wasn't outside of the realm of possibility. I was going to college in our home state, and it was the biggest hub in our state. It was just so weird. Small world shit. We'd fallen out of touch when she dropped out, but I'd know her laugh anywhere. I was trying to find a polite way out of a crackhead's life story. Note to self, don't ask the weird lady at the bus station her Thanksgiving plans just to be nice. You will regret it. Suddenly, I hear that laugh, and I instantly start looking because I'm flashing back to high school. Not so long ago, but still a world away from my deteriorating situation. She just so happened to be moving halfway across the country with her future baby daddy. Real scumbag, all things considered. He rubbed me the wrong way, but I didn't want to upset either one of them by pointing this out, so we just vibed until they started calling for my bus. I had taken my friend to the emergency room because of appendicitis. As we were sitting in the waiting room, this guy with a needle in his arm stumbles in and collapses. Doctors and nurses rush over to him, not sure what they gave him, but he went from being unconscious and near death one sec to jumping up onto his feet and trying to run out of the ER. Security had to restrain him while police were called. It was like seeing someone rise from the dead. Freaks me out till this day. I was waiting at a red light at a T intersection when a very fast car blew through the T part of the intersection and hit a metal barrier on the other side front on, completely crumpling. That is already quite weird, but what was really surreal was that the driver almost immediately got out of the car and walked away without a scratch and without looking back. Then the light changed to green on my side and the cars across from me immediately started moving, and someone behind me honked me and changed lanes to get around me while I was sat there still in complete shock. I did eventually manage to pull over and call the police, but not before having to ask myself if that actually really happened, because none of the people involved, including the driver, seemed to be even slightly fazed by it.